Hey y'all. So let's pick back up. And I love this tie-in, which is why the Holy Spirit did this, and I'm so glad that I listened. It's just really cool to see how he sees threads before we see them. So we all know Peter denied Jesus. And let's go back to John. Let's see. All right. I'm sorry. I should have had that part marked. But when Jesus is here it is, John 18, and let's go down into verses 12, 13, 14. But in the Last Supper, Jesus was telling the disciples, a little bit about what was going to happen. And Peter, he said, now one of you will betray me. He said, before the rooster crows the third time, he said, one of you, this is in John 13, go to 36. And Simon Peter said to him, Lord, where are you going? Jesus answered, you are not able to follow me now where I'm going, but you shall follow me later. And Peter said to him, Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you. And in verse 38, Jesus answered, will you really lay down your life for me? Because I assure you, most solemnly I tell you, before a rooster crows, you will deny me completely. You will completely disown me 3 times. So that's in John 13. And then we get down to John 18, and it says, so Jesus was before the Jewish authorities. So the troops and their captain and the guard attendants of the Jews seized Jesus and bound him. And they brought him first to Annas, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who had counseled the Jews that it was expedient and for their welfare that one man should die instead or in behalf of the people. Now Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus, and that disciple was known to the high priest. So he entered along with Jesus into the court of the palace of the high priest. But Peter was standing outside of the door. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the maid who kept the door and brought Peter inside. Then the maid who was in charge at the door said to Peter, you are not also one of the disciples of this man, are you? He said, I am not. Now the servants and the guard, the attendants, had made a fire of coals, for it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves, and Peter was with them, standing and warming himself. And then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. And Jesus answered him, I've spoken openly to the world. Openly to the world. I've always taught in the synagogue and in the temple where the Jews congregate. I have spoken nothing secretly. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. They know what I said. And let's go down to verse 25. But Simon Peter still was standing and was warming himself. And they said to him, you are not also one of his disciples, are you? And he denied it and said, I am not. And one of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter cut off, said, did I not see you in the garden with him? And again Peter denied it, and immediately a rooster crowed. So in the heat of the moments when Jesus is being questioned and things are very dark and very hard, where, just hours earlier, Peter had said, I'll lay down my life for you. But now in the heat of it, Peter says, I don't know him. I completely disown him. I do not know him. And so when we come back in Jesus, after his resurrection, he's appeared to his disciples. He's been doing miracles after his resurrection. He sits down to have a conversation with Peter, because through it all, Jesus has known all about Peter, the good, the bad, the ugly, the hard, the wild, and yet he still sees the plan and the good that God has for Peter. And he still loves Peter. Now, tomorrow we're going to talk about this exchange between Jesus and Peter. I'll see you then. Bye, y'all.